Princess Loana wished to express her gratitude to Her Majesty by baking cookies. Despite using the same dough and molds as Maria, the results were starkly different. Maria's cookies looked elegant, while Loana's appeared less refined. Uncertain about their quality, Loana remarked to Maria that they might not be worth presenting and suggested discarding them. Maria, however, assured her that they looked delicious and believed the Empress would appreciate them, as they could evoke memories of the prince's childhood. Still unconvinced, Loana doubted the cookies' quality, but Maria encouraged her to trust in her efforts. Loana then remembered there was another person she wanted to share the cookies with: Adam. When she presented the cookies to him, Adam expressed genuine delight, thanking her for the personal touch. He observed, "The cookies are shaped like raccoons, aren't they?" Loana corrected him, explaining they were actually meant to resemble bears. Adam, nonetheless, was sincerely appreciative, saying he would cherish her thoughtful gesture. Loana found his response comforting, as he made no criticism about the cookies. Maria, standing nearby, remarked that Loana had made them with love and sincerity. At that moment, the prince entered the room. Adam eagerly showed him the cookies, but the prince was not impressed and questioned what they were supposed to be. Adam urged him to look closely, insisting they were charming. The prince dismissed Adam's suggestion, stating that his own tastes were hard to satisfy. He then bluntly told Loana that she was not skilled in cooking, causing her to doubt whether the cookies had pleased him at all. Maria interjected, noting that the cookies seemed familiar, perhaps reminiscent of an event she had attended during her youth. This comment sparked a memory for the prince, who recalled making similar cookies in his childhood. Reconsidering, he softened his stance and acknowledged that, upon a closer look, the cookies were acceptable and showed a hint of talent. Loana felt relieved and pleased that the prince had given some form of praise, even if it was hesitant. Maria then observed that, despite Loana's apparent lack of experience, her effort and sincerity were what mattered most. She mentioned that the cookies reminded her of the past and even suggested that Loana shared some similarities with herself. Encouraged by this, Loana declared with determination that she would strive to surpass the prince's skill. Her words surprised the prince, as she had inadvertently addressed him as brother. Immediately, Loana was filled with concern, wondering if she had overstepped and if an apology was needed. Yet, before she could say anything, the prince gently lifted her and remarked on her use of the term brother. Loana was overcome with emotion, realizing that instead of being offended, the prince continued to smile warmly at her. She thought to herself how kind-hearted those around her truly were. Later that evening, the prince stayed by Loana's side as she drifted off to sleep. Maria entered the room quietly and saw Loana resting while holding the prince's hand. The prince noticed Maria's arrival and reassured her, "It's fine, you may leave." He remained seated, deep in thought, as he watched over Loana. He reflected on the peculiar sense of familiarity he had felt since their first meeting. Though he knew Loana was Liliana's daughter, he could not help but think of her as a little sister. As he contemplated his feelings, the prince resolved to stay beside Loana until she awoke. He mused over her future, wondering whether she would follow in her mother's footsteps or choose to remain by his side. When morning came, Loana awoke to find the prince still there, resting beside her. His quiet presence stirred a sense of comfort and connection she had not expected. When he opened his eyes, she was startled, and the prince, noticing her reaction, remarked that she always seemed surprised to see him. Just then, Maria entered, explaining that Loana's discomfort was likely due to the prince's intimidating presence, something she had warned about before. The prince, addressing Loana again, questioned her about crying, pointing out that his hand still ached because she had clung to it throughout the night. Loana, still surprised, admitted she hadn't realized he was asleep next to her. The prince, amused, accused her of pretending to sleep while watching him. His comment carried an unintended harshness, and Maria was taken aback, while the prince regretted mentioning anything that might remind Loana of painful memories associated with Liliana. He quickly tried to change the subject, asking her to disregard his words. However, Loana retorted that even the crown prince could be deceptive, reminding him that she hadn't expected to wake up next to him. The prince gently placed his hand on her shoulder, remarking that they bore a striking resemblance. Then, he began to search for something around the room. When Luana informed him that, since it was her chamber, there would be nothing of his there, Maria mentioned that he seemed to be looking for cookies. Luana confessed that she hadn't baked any the previous day, thinking he didn't like them. She promised to bring him something else next time, playfully noting that he must be disappointed to miss out on the treats she had made with love. Turning to Maria, Luana asked her to arrange some food for the prince if he was hungry. Maria agreed, adding that Luana would need to practice her baking more, as it seemed the prince had a greater fondness for cookies than they had anticipated. While Maria left to handle the request, Luana reflected on her journey. When she had first come to the palace, her sole aim had been survival. But now, she was determined to prove her worth to the prince and everyone else, feeling proud of the progress she had made. Meanwhile, in the Empress's office, Count Cher stood before her. The Empress inquired about his visit, and he explained that his wife and daughter wished to offer their apologies in person but were unable to come to the palace. When asked if this was related to a missed invitation, the Count clarified that his daughter Selina had been striving to be a better person. He described how distraught she had been, promising that the incident wouldn't happen again if forgiveness could be granted. The Empress, acknowledging that Selina was still young, conceded that perhaps she had been too harsh and suggested they have lunch together. Later, Selina returned to the palace, addressing the Empress as her mother. She expressed her regret over her previous disregard for the imperial family, acknowledging her past mistakes. The Empress reassured her, saying that she understood it hadn't been intentional, though her thoughts wandered to Luana. Unintentionally, she found herself comparing Luana's stature to Selina's, something she knew she shouldn't be doing. Selina noticed that the Empress's attention seemed divided, and soon enough, a maid entered with a gift for the Empress, a basket of cakes prepared by Luana as a gesture of gratitude. The Empress was delighted and inquired whether Luana had made them herself. Seeing the Empress so pleased made Selina envious. Driven by jealousy, Selina stood up and pointed out that many of the cakes appeared burnt, suggesting they might be harmful. She questioned what Luana had been thinking, accusing her of insulting the Empire with such an offering. Without warning, Selina shoved the basket off the table, sending the cakes tumbling to the floor. The Empress's expression darkened as she reprimanded Selina, stating that despite her efforts to appear more mature, her behavior remained exaggerated and reckless. She warned that any further insult would not be tolerated, then ordered the maids to escort Selina out of the palace. As Selina pleaded for mercy, the Empress's concern shifted to the cakes, most of which were now ruined. The once thoughtful gift lay scattered, nearly empty, leaving the Empress troubled. Selina could still vividly recall the first time she saw the Empress, whom she always referred to as her aunt. The Empress had become a figure of inspiration for her from that very moment, embodying the grace and elegance Selina aspired to possess. Selina took every opportunity to visit the Empress, who reciprocated with warmth and affection. She cherished these visits, secretly wishing to be regarded as the Empress's own daughter. However, recent events had marred the once peaceful environment. While passing by a gathering of noblewomen, Selina overheard them gossiping about her. They questioned how someone like the Empress's niece could be left to suffer alone, implying that Selina had fallen out of favor. Another woman suggested that Selina's misfortune must have been a result of the Empress's disapproval. Despite Selina's attempts to defend herself, claiming that the Empress had always cared for her, the women remained unconvinced. One went as far as to say that Selina had merely been pretending to belong to the royal family, hinting that her position was not as secure as she imagined. Their conversation soon shifted to Luana, the young lady recently taken under the Empress's wing. It was remarked that the Empress treated Luana with a level of care usually reserved for a daughter, even spoiling her with treats. The comparison to Luana, who was now being regarded as a true princess, stung deeply. Frustrated and unable to bear their words any longer, Selina left the room, her mind set on a course of action. Determined not to be overshadowed, Selina sought her father's support, insisting that he persuade the Empress to send Luana away. Her father listened as Selina, her voice filled with indignation, urged him to remove Luana from the palace. Meanwhile, In the Empress's private chambers, a conversation unfolded between the Empress and one of her maids. The Empress inquired about the recent developments concerning Liliana, to which the maid responded that Loana was being sought after by the other attendants, with considerable interest shown in her presence. The Empress mused over the matter, noting that arrangements for the palace budget and Loana's guardianship would need to be addressed, and a discussion with the prince seemed inevitable. Elsewhere, Loana found herself surrounded by an array of garments, brought by Maria, an attendant close to her. Loana questioned the sudden influx of clothes, expressing curiosity over the purpose behind it. Maria, brushing off the specifics for the moment, encouraged Loana to choose an outfit that suited her. She explained that these clothes were from her own youth, and assured Loana that soon a designer would be summoned to provide even more exquisite attire. Loana sensed that there was more to this situation than what was being disclosed, and asked if something was being planned. Maria hinted at a luncheon arranged by the Empress, adding that it was meant to be kept under wraps. She also mentioned the Empress's unusual interest in some biscuits, suggesting that the delicacies had made a lasting impression on her. As Maria busied herself preparing Loana, the young lady's attention was drawn to a particular dress that caught her eye. Maria agreed, noting that they shared a similar taste, and suggested they wear the dress for the day. When Maria proposed buying more dresses later, Loana hesitated, explaining that she had no money. Maria reassured her, saying that as a royal, Loana had inherited significant wealth from the late emperor, and it would be no trouble to buy her clothes. Loana felt uneasy about receiving so much, thinking that she did not want to be a burden. Maria, sensing her hesitation, insisted that there was no time to waste, and that Loana needed to dress well for her meeting with the Empress. When Loana nervously questioned whether she could really visit the Queen, Maria reminded her that the Empress was indeed her mother, Liliana. She added that anyone who had the fortune to give birth to an imperial princess was blessed, encouraging Loana to embrace her status. Once Loana was dressed, Maria declared everything ready except for the shoes, suggesting a pair of red ones she had seen earlier. As soon as the color was mentioned, a memory resurfaced for Loana, a room covered in blood and a vivid image of her own death. She abruptly told Maria she did not wish to wear the shoes. At that moment, the prince entered, observing Loana's reluctance. He questioned why shoes, which were essential for walking, were being refused. Then, without waiting for a response, he lifted Loana in his arms and assured her that he would carry her all day, making shoes unnecessary. Maria still attempted to persuade them, mentioning that the shoes would complement the dress perfectly, but the prince dismissed the idea, stating that his mother was waiting, and they needed to leave. As the prince and Loana departed, Adam stopped Maria, pointing out that Loana had clearly been unsettled by the sight of the shoes. He suggested they wait until she was ready to talk about it, and Maria agreed, hoping that one day Loana would open up about her fears. As they walked through the palace, the prince inquired if Loana had always disliked shoes so intensely. She admitted that the shoes were indeed beautiful, but explained that the sight of the red color disturbed her, though she could not fully articulate why. The prince immediately declared that there would be no red shoes in the future, reassuring her that no one would challenge her choice, not even the Empress. Loana asked if her mother would really allow it, and the prince promised that even if Liliana objected, he would protect her. Adam joined in, pledging his protection as well. Loana felt a small sense of relief, sensing her fear beginning to fade. They reached the Empress's palace, a prominent place within the imperial grounds, where the courtiers whispered amongst themselves as the princess entered, cradled in the prince's arms. Some murmured that the child seemed familiar, but soon their attention shifted to Loana. She felt the weight of their stares and grew uncomfortable, prompting the prince to give a commanding glance that made the onlookers bow quickly in respect. Amidst the gathering, Loana noticed a man standing at a distance and asked the prince who he was. The prince identified him as the Duke of Esteban. Loana felt a faint recognition, as though she had seen him before, but could not place the memory. In the crowd, one of Liliana's maids spotted Loana and hurriedly decided that the Empress must be informed of the princess's appearance. Loana, accompanied by the prince and Adam, stepped into the grandiose halls of the Empress's palace. As her eyes roamed over the intricate carvings, gilded walls, and shimmering chandeliers, she couldn't help but express her admiration. It was remarked by her that the palace was one of the most beautiful places she had ever seen. The prince, pleased by her awe, explained the origin of its splendor. He stated that the empress's palace had always been renowned for its luxury and magnificence, not just as a symbol of power, but as evidence of the eternal happiness of the first emperor and empress. He added that the first empress had been an imp who married the first emperor, an extraordinary union that brought immense joy to the kingdom. It was because of their enduring love that such a magnificent palace had been built. Loana listened intently, her curiosity piqued by the mention of imps and orcs. She hesitated for a moment before asking if orcs truly existed. Her question was met with a gentle smile from the prince, who assured her that they did. He explained that orcs were indeed real, though they were different from ordinary people. Then, with a mysterious gleam in his eyes, he confided that, thanks to the first empress, beings like him could disguise their true forms. It was suggested by him that Loana might one day see his real form. "When?" she asked, her voice tinged with excitement and curiosity. The prince responded playfully, hinting that perhaps next year's grand celebration would provide such an opportunity. Loana's face lit up at the thought, her eagerness evident as she expressed her anticipation. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden arrival of a maid. She approached with a warm smile and offered to give them a tour of the palace. The prince, slightly startled, gently admonished her for not informing him beforehand. However, the maid explained that she had refrained from announcing herself earlier because the pair seemed so happy together. When the prince inquired about his mother, the maid informed them that the empress was in the kitchen, personally preparing a meal to welcome them. Loana, feeling out of place as the daughter of a concubine, found herself surprised by the kindness and warmth she received from the palace staff. In her heart, she had anticipated animosity, or at least indifference, yet the reality was entirely different. Her expression betrayed her unease, prompting the prince to reassure her. He encouraged her to relax and not to worry, teasing that the empress wasn't about to prey on her. Despite his attempts to comfort her, Loana couldn't shake her uncertainty. She was still trying to figure out how to deal with someone as important as the empress. When they entered the grand chamber, the empress was already present, seated regally yet exuding warmth. She turned to her maid Emma and remarked that the prince and Loana made a charming pair. Emma nodded in agreement, her smile reflecting her approval. Loana and the prince were directed to their seats, though Emma teasingly pointed out that a separate chair had been prepared for Loana. The prince brushed off the comment with a dismissive wave, stating that it wasn't necessary since he would carry Loana all day if needed. The empress's sharp eyes caught sight of Loana's bare feet, and she inquired about it with gentle concern. The prince, quick to answer, explained that Loana had no need for shoes as long as he was there to carry her. The empress, visibly amused by his response, let the matter rest, and soon the table was filled with an array of delicious dishes. As the meal commenced, the empress turned her attention to Loana and asked her opinion about her experience so far. Before Loana could respond, the prince began feeding her, a gesture that drew a chuckle from the empress. She rose from her seat and declared that she wished to feed Loana as well, offering her some candy with a playful smile. The light-hearted moment was interrupted when a man burst into the room, announcing the arrival of a courtesan. The word sent a jolt through Loana, and her face paled as a sudden thought struck her. She turned to the prince and asked in a trembling voice if it was possible that her mother was here because of her. The empress, sensing Loana's distress, moved closer and gently assured her that she could be trusted. She requested Loana to wait for her, explaining that she wished to spend time with the daughter she had long been unable to see. The word daughter echoed in Loana's mind, stirring a whirlwind of emotions. It was a term she had never heard her own mother use, and its warmth left her feeling strangely relieved. A sense of security, foreign yet comforting, enveloped her as she reflected on the empress's words. For the first time, she felt as though someone truly wished to protect her. As the empress began walking toward the courtesan, Loana remained seated, her thoughts a tangled mix of uncertainty and hope. She realized that something within her had shifted. An unfamiliar yet reassuring feeling of belonging had taken root in her heart. Liliana paced angrily in her chambers, her fury evident as she confronted a trembling maid. She demanded to know if it was true that Loana, the female protagonist, had been taken to the Empress's palace. Liliana flung a stack of papers at the maid and insisted that they be read aloud. The maid, barely able to steady her shaking hands, read the proclamation. It stated that the Empress's palace would henceforth manage all matters concerning Loana and take full responsibility for her welfare. Liliana's eyes narrowed with rage as she interrogated the maid, accusing the palace staff of allowing Loana to leave with the prince without informing her. Liliana's voice dripped with venom, as she remarked that if this had been disclosed earlier, the situation could have been addressed properly. She threatened severe punishment for those involved, her frustration boiling over. Frightened, the maid stammered an apology before scurrying out of the room. Liliana, consumed by her anger, hurled a teacup to the floor. Her thoughts raced as she concluded that Loana had been hidden in the Empress's palace deliberately. She vowed to punish the girl severely when she returned. Liliana scoffed at Loana's audacity to leave without her permission, believing she had complete control over her daughter. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the Emperor. Sensing his concern, Liliana masked her emotions and assured him that nothing was amiss. She placed a hand on his forehead, using her magic to calm him, and sent him away. Alone again, Liliana mused about Loana's position at the palace. Despite her outward anger, she thought of Loana as a possession she had trained, someone whose every move she controlled. A wicked smile spread across her face as she plotted her next move. Meanwhile, as the prince prepared to leave the palace, Loana anxiously grasped the edge of his cloak, inquiring about his destination. Though he dismissed her concerns, Loana suspected he intended to visit Liliana. She pleaded with him, warning that meeting her mother could be dangerous. Loana's thoughts were consumed by fear, remembering Liliana's cruel nature. The prince, kneeling to meet her gaze, reassured Loana with a confident smile, insisting he was stronger than she thought. He urged her to wait patiently for his return before departing. Despite his words, Loana remained uneasy. Maria, her companion, attempted to distract her by suggesting a game, but Loana was too preoccupied with worry. At the Empress's palace, Liliana sat sipping tea, impatiently awaiting an audience. She remarked to her attendants about the Empress's habit of making guests wait. One maid, speaking cautiously, reminded Liliana that her early arrival was the reason for the delay and that she should be grateful for the Empress's leniency. Liliana's eyes flashed with resentment, feeling slighted by her status as a concubine. She silently vowed revenge, fantasizing about destroying the palace once her son Louis ascended the throne. When the Empress finally appeared, Liliana was startled to see the Crown Prince accompanying her. The prince's calm demeanor unsettled Liliana further as he remarked that her presence seemed unwelcome. Liliana feigned ignorance, claiming she had no idea the prince would accompany the Empress. The Empress wasted no time demanding Liliana state her business. Liliana declared that her daughter was missing, but the Empress retorted that the matter had already been addressed in the document sent to her. Liliana, indignant, argued that as Loana's mother she had the right to reclaim her child. The Empress countered that Loana, as a princess, belonged in the palace under her care. The discussion grew heated as the prince interjected. He challenged Liliana's claim to motherhood, accusing her of mistreating Loana. He presented reports detailing the poor state of Loana's health during her time in Liliana's care, citing them as evidence of neglect. He declared that Loana would remain under the Empress's protection from that day forward. Liliana, desperate, attempted to defend herself. She suggested that her treatment of Loana was being judged unfairly because of her status as a concubine. She lashed out, insinuating that the Empress's interest in Loana was motivated by personal failures with her own child. The prince's attention was drawn to a faint noise nearby. He moved to investigate but found only a single slipper on the ground, the owner having disappeared. Roughly an hour earlier, Maria had stepped into Loana's chamber, only to find her fast asleep beneath a thick blanket. The soft rise and fall of her breath suggested she was deep in slumber, undisturbed by the midday light streaming through the windows. Maria couldn't help but pause, her gaze lingering on the sleeping girl. She assumed that Lawana was still upset by the recent departure of the prince and the empress. A sympathetic sigh escaped her as she placed a tray of snacks on the nearby table. Speaking softly, more to herself than to the sleeping figure, she remarked that the food should be eaten once Lawana woke. With a gentle shake of her head, Maria thought it better to let her sleep, believing rest would help soothe her troubled heart. Quietly, she exited the room, taking care not to wake her. However, the moment Maria left, Lawana stirred. Beneath the blanket, she had hidden a small teddy bear, clutching it tightly to her chest as though it were her anchor. Now determination lit up her eyes. Casting the bear aside, she made up her mind. She couldn't stay idle while the prince and the empress were in danger because of her mother. Her sense of responsibility outweighed her fear, and she decided to act. Stepping out of the palace, Lawana felt an unfamiliar blend of excitement and trepidation. This was her first time venturing outside alone. The grand palace gates had always seemed imposing, yet today they marked the start of a daunting journey. She hesitated, unsure of where to begin. Without any clear direction, she wandered aimlessly through the same paths, doubling back as uncertainty gnawed at her. The sprawling expanse of the outside world felt overwhelming, and she grew increasingly anxious about being caught. The thought of Maria realizing her absence sent pangs of guilt through her chest. She's probably looking for me now, Lawana thought, glancing nervously over her shoulder. For a fleeting moment, she considered returning to her chamber, but the memory of the prince's kind smile steeled her resolve. She reminded herself that she couldn't abandon him to face the dangers posed by her mother. It was then that something strange caught her eye. A few droplets of water floated inexplicably in the air before her, glistening like tiny jewels. Lawana blinked, unsure if she was imagining things, but the droplets remained. A faint tug in her heart urged her to follow them. Trusting her instincts, she did so, her steps tentative at first but growing more confident as she moved forward. The droplets seemed to guide her, leading her further from the palace and deeper into the woods. After some time, Lawana found herself standing near a secluded clearing. Her breath hitched as she spotted familiar figures. Prince Kale and the Empress were standing a short distance away, speaking to a woman Lawana recognized as Liliana. Concealing herself behind a tree, she strained to hear their conversation. What she heard sent chills down her spine. Liliana's voice carried a sharp edge as she spoke about the Empress's deceased daughter. Lawana's heart raced when she caught the chilling words. "Doesn't your daughter bear a striking resemblance to her?" Lawana's mind reeled. Her chest tightened with fear and guilt as she realized the full gravity of the situation. Overcome with panic, she turned and fled, her footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath her. Thoughts swirled in her mind, each one more distressing than the last. She blamed herself for the troubles that had befallen the Empress and the Prince. "I came here only to survive," she reflected bitterly. "But they gave me so much love. Love I don't deserve." Tears welled in her eyes as she questioned everything, her decisions, her worth, and whether it had been wrong to seek refuge with them in the first place. Unable to suppress her turmoil, Lawana sank to the ground, wrapping her arms around her knees. She felt utterly useless, her confidence shattered. Just as despair threatened to consume her, a gentle voice broke through the silence. Startled, she looked up to see a vision of herself. Older, perhaps 18 years of age, standing before her. This spectral version of Lawana spoke with calm reassurance, reminding her that her path was her own to forge. "Your future is different from mine," the older Lawana said. "It is in your hands to shape it." As quickly as she had appeared, the vision vanished, leaving Lawana awash with a newfound sense of purpose. Before she could fully comprehend what had happened, the sound of footsteps drew her attention. Prince Kyle approached, his expression a mix of relief and exasperation. His voice, though stern, carried an unmistakable warmth as he told her how long he had been searching for her. Overwhelmed by guilt, Lawana apologized profusely, explaining that she had only wanted to protect him and the Empress from her mother's schemes. Her voice trembled as she admitted she didn't feel worthy of the kindness they had shown her. "Do I even deserve to stay here?" she asked, her eyes brimming with tears. The prince's response was immediate and unwavering. He assured her that, Regardless of what happened, she was his sister, and this was her home. His words struck a chord deep within her, and Lawana couldn't hold back her tears. Overcome with emotion, she flung her arms around him, finding solace in his embrace. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to cry openly, releasing the pent-up pain and doubt that had weighed her down. She thanked him repeatedly, her gratitude spilling forth like a torrent. Exhausted by the day's events, Lawana eventually fell asleep beside the prince. When she stirred later, his voice was gentle as he told her to rest a little longer. Obediently, she returned to bed, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Not long after, Maria entered the room. The prince raised a finger to his lips, signaling for her to remain quiet. "She's still asleep," he whispered. Together they left the room, ensuring Lawana's peaceful slumber remained undisturbed. In the quiet that followed, the faint traces of a smile lingered on Lawana's lips, a testament to the love and acceptance she had finally allowed herself to feel. Adam, an advisor to the crown prince, approached the prince with a set of papers, explaining that a thorough investigation had been conducted. He stated that the bracelet acquired by the princess had been traced back to its origins. By consulting the artisan who crafted the jewelry and utilizing the info syndicate, the truth behind the bracelet's logo, a distinctive crown, was uncovered. The prince, upon recognizing the emblem, deduced that it belonged to Duc Estébien. He remarked that, while the Duke appeared amiable to everyone, giving such a valuable gift to a young girl seemed suspicious. Adam agreed, asserting that the young lady should no longer be left unattended. Maria, who stood beside them, silently disagreed with their conclusions. To herself, she thought their suspicions were unfounded. She found it unlikely that the Duke could have recognized the princess's true identity at the time, given her unassuming demeanor. Still, Maria couldn't help but muse that the gesture might have been motivated by love. When she voiced her thoughts, suggesting that the Duke might have been captivated by the girl's beauty, the prince and Adam dismissed her idea, though it left them somewhat perplexed. The prince curtly instructed Adam to remain vigilant and prepare for any eventuality, adding that much to his dismay, he would have to meet the Duke personally. Meanwhile, in a tranquil setting beneath a tree, Karan, the boy who had originally possessed the bracelet, sat lost in thought. When his father approached, Karan preemptively declared his reluctance to attend another party. His father, unfazed, informed him that the bracelet's whereabouts had been discovered. Shocked, Karan's mind immediately turned to the girl who had taken it. However, when asked if he wished to know more, Karan retorted that he was no longer curious, dismissing his father abruptly. Later, Karan's father met with the Empress, proposing a plan to forge a bond between his son and the princess. He suggested that given their similar age and compatible temperaments, the arrangement would be mutually beneficial. The Empress, while not outright rejecting the idea, expressed her concern that such an arrangement might fuel misunderstandings. Karan's father countered by emphasizing his son's merits, both in status and character, and proposed that such an alliance would deter unwanted suitors. The Empress, weighing the advantages, considered it a strategic opportunity, especially as it might prevent Liliana from meddling with the princess again. She decided to discuss the matter with the crown prince. Back at the palace, Lawana lay on her bed, expressing a desire to see the Empress. Maria attempted to lift her spirits, mentioning that Adam had promised to bring a gift. Observing Maria's excitement while speaking of Adam, Lawana couldn't suppress her curiosity. Pulling Maria aside, she inquired about her relationship with Adam, pointing out the subtle glances and smiles they often exchanged. Maria, flustered, dismissed the suggestion, questioning why Lawana had suddenly brought it up. Before the conversation could continue, the crown prince entered the room, followed closely by Adam, each carrying gifts. Lawana greeted them warmly, her earlier curiosity now redirected. Seizing the moment, she teasingly asked Adam about his opinion of Maria. Before Adam could respond, Maria interjected, urging them to focus on the gifts. Adam handed Lawana several boxes, explaining that he had been uncertain of her preferences, but was now confident she would enjoy the contents. Inside were items carefully chosen to align with Lawana's tastes. Adam mentioned how sampling her cookies had helped him understand her likes, noting their shared preferences. Luana was taken aback by Adam's admission that he had eaten the cookies she made. She recalled how they had looked misshapen and unappealing, and she had assumed no one would enjoy them. Her surprise was evident, but Adam's sincerity softened her self-doubt. Among the items was a small, beautifully wrapped box that he handed to her with a hopeful expression. The Crown Prince, who was present, immediately grew curious. He questioned Adam about the box's contents, but Adam suggested that Luana herself should open it. However, a wave of apprehension swept over her. She wondered how Adam could have interpreted her taste so accurately, yet feared the gift might be based on something she had previously given him, perhaps in a way that would fail to meet her expectations. Despite her worries, she decided to approach the situation with optimism. She expressed her appreciation for the effort Adam had put into the gift, even though she secretly braced herself for disappointment. Noticing her hesitation, the Crown Prince stepped forward. With a teasing remark, he offered to open the box first, suggesting it might spare her the trouble. Luana, caught between her curiosity and unease, handed the box over. However, the prince's jest did not end there. He teased her further, implying that her quick surrender of the gift suggested a lack of interest. Flustered, Luana responded that her hesitation was merely an attempt to avoid any misunderstandings on Adam's part. Turning to Maria, who stood nearby, the Crown Prince suggested that she should open the box instead. He humorously proposed that perhaps Maria's supposed power of love would make the task easier. However, Maria declined, insisting that the responsibility should remain with Luana. Encouraged by Maria's words, Luana tried to steel herself mentally, though her unease persisted. Eventually, the Crown Prince took matters into his own hands. He opened the box, but as soon as he looked inside, his expression darkened. A grimace crossed his face as he closed the lid and handed the box to Maria. In a tone that blended mockery and seriousness, he instructed her to dispose of the contents by burning them. Adam, visibly shocked, asked for an explanation. Luana, her curiosity now piqued to an unbearable degree, pleaded to see the gift. However, the prince refused firmly. He claimed that the contents were unsuitable for her and might harm her mental well-being. Turning back to Adam, he issued a warning, advising him to refrain from creating gifts that reflected his personal tastes in the future. Adam, though visibly disappointed, accepted the rebuke with a promise to remember it. Luana, despite the prince's dismissal, found herself unable to let the matter go. She reminded him that the gift had been made specifically for her and expressed a desire to keep it. The prince, unimpressed, asked if she even knew what the gift was. Before she could answer, he turned to Maria and ordered her to reveal the truth. Maria hesitated briefly before explaining that the item in question was a cookie, an attempt by Adam to create something authentic. Though Luana felt a pang of regret, she apologized to Adam. She praised his efforts, assuring him that his intentions had been admirable, even though she couldn't accept the gift. Her words, though kind, did little to alleviate the tension. The Crown Prince, noticing her lingering curiosity, sought to redirect her attention. He informed her that he had a gift of his own to present, one he had acquired some time ago. When Luana asked about its nature, the prince revealed that it had originally been part of his personal collection. However, he assured her that he was willing to part with it for her sake. While the prince spoke, Maria observed the exchange with quiet amusement. She silently critiqued the contrasting tastes of the men in the palace, finding their approaches to gift-giving equally puzzling. However, Luana's interest in the prince's promise grew. She asked Maria if she had any idea what the gift might be, but Maria denied any knowledge. After a brief pause, Maria changed the subject by asking Luana if she enjoyed reading books. Luana hesitated before admitting that she had never read one. Maria, upon hearing this, expressed surprise. She quickly reassured Luana that there was no shame in being unfamiliar with books, suggesting that they could explore the library together and begin with something simple. Moved by Maria's enthusiasm, Luana found herself struggling to reveal the truth. She could, in fact, read. However, before she could confess, Maria had already made plans to personally read fairy tales to her. Luana, deeply touched by this gesture, found herself reflecting on her past. In her previous life, She had been neglected and left to fend for herself, even during moments of grave illness. The idea of someone reading stories to her was so foreign that it felt almost unreal. Comparing her current situation to the struggles of her past, she was overwhelmed by a sense of gratitude. Maria, meanwhile, had begun selecting a story for their first reading session. She chose a book titled The Founding of the First Emperor and Empress and presented it to Luana with a bright smile. She explained that it was a fairy tale and suggested it would be a fitting introduction to the world of books. Luana accepted the suggestion with a warm smile of her own. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, a sense of belonging that she had long believed was beyond her reach. The prospect of exploring stories with Maria filled her with anticipation, and she allowed herself to look toward the future with newfound optimism. Maria began recounting a story to Luana, explaining that it was a love story passed down through generations. The tale began in a small, peaceful village where a boy with extraordinary blonde hair lived. His hair was so radiant that even in complete darkness, it seemed to shimmer as if lit by an inner glow. Turning to Luana, Maria observed that her hair bore a resemblance to the boy's. Luana, however, expressed uncertainty, unsure if her hair truly matched the description. Maria clarified that while many people had blonde hair, this boy's was remarkably unique, as though touched by magic itself. The story continued with an unexpected misfortune that struck the boy's village. To protect his home, the boy embarked on a journey during which he encountered an elf of extraordinary beauty. This elf, with her striking blue hair and the ability to wield ice, became his ally. Together, they confronted and defeated the enemy that had threatened his village. Hearing this, Luana recalled her brother mentioning a similar tale about the first queen of their kingdom. She commented that the elf in the story sounded exactly like the queen. Maria confirmed this, adding that Luana's eyes might have been inherited from her. Luana found herself reflecting on her resemblance to the queen. Her eyes, identical in color to those described in the story, made her wonder if she was more than just a distant descendant. For the first time, the thought that she might truly be connected to royalty crossed her mind. Maria continued narrating how the boy had gone on to build a grand palace in the heart of his village. He had eventually married the elf, who had agreed to the union under specific conditions. Luana, filled with curiosity, questioned the nature of these conditions and the misfortune that had befallen the village. She also asked why the boy's childhood friend, a red-haired figure who had shed tears while blessing the couple, had appeared so suddenly in the story. Maria admitted that many parts of the story felt incomplete, as if significant details had been omitted. She explained that the tale was likely an amalgamation of various floating stories and legends. While the existence of the village and the elf might have been rooted in truth, elements like the red-haired friend seemed fabricated. However, Luana couldn't shake the feeling that the story's details, especially the mention of the friend, resonated with her deeply. Maria offered to read the story from the book again, but Luana declined, claiming to remember it in its entirety. Maria remarked on how vividly Luana seemed to recall the tale, particularly the part where the boy and the elf first met. Luana, almost absent-mindedly, recited an entire sentence from the story, describing the boy's emotions during that fateful meeting. Maria, astonished, decided to test her further. Page by page, Maria asked Luana to recall specific sections of the story. To her amazement, Luana repeated each part with perfect accuracy, as if the words had been etched into her memory. Maria marveled at how Luana, having skimmed the story only once, had retained it so completely. This level of recall, Maria thought, was far beyond ordinary, prompting her to consider inviting a tutor to formally educate Luana. Their conversation shifted when Luana inquired if the kingdom described in the story was real. Maria confirmed that it was the Taurian kingdom, a desert nation built around a vast oasis. She showed Luana an illustration of the kingdom's capital, pointing out the grand palace at its center. The location, Maria explained, was chosen because of the oasis that sustained the entire region. As Luana studied the image, a strange sensation overcame her. Her eyes widened, and she felt an inexplicable connection to the place. She wondered if she had ever dreamt of it before, or if it was a memory buried deep within her. In another part of the palace, a seal was seen reprimanding Adam over the gifts he had prepared for Luana, She reminded him that he had been warned not to give inappropriate presents. Adam explained that Luana had not seen the gifts because Maria had taken them away. After some time, Asil sat down and began questioning Adam about Luana's character. She mentioned that Luana seemed highly regarded by both the Crown Prince and Maria and expressed her desire to meet her. Adam responded that he could request permission from the Crown Prince, suggesting that Luana might soon have more free time after her maid and bodyguard were appointed. Asil questioned why Maria seemed to handle so many responsibilities on her own, asking why the existing maids weren't involved. Adam replied that the situation was complicated and difficult to explain. Their conversation took a darker turn when Asil, unable to contain her frustration, began cursing Liliana. Adam attempted to calm her, but Asil expressed her anger, blaming Liliana for their father's death. She remarked that although all evidence pointed to Liliana as the culprit, her guilt could not be proven, allowing her to roam freely without consequence. Adam reminded Asil that Luana should not be blamed for any of this. Asil agreed, adding that this was why she had chosen to give Luana a teddy bear as a gift. Suddenly, Asil clutched her head and sat down, clearly in pain. Adam, concerned, asked if she was all right. Asil assured him it was nothing serious, though she admitted she hadn't felt this way in a long time. Shifting the subject, she resolved to find a maid for Luana from a noble family. Adam promised to relay the information carefully when he next saw Luana. The events began to unfold in the imperial palace, where Adam, a loyal aide, approached Crown Prince to discuss a matter of importance. A question was posed to the prince, seeking his opinion on whether a particular plan could be executed. The prince, after reflecting, expressed that it might be better for Asil to handle the matter of maids rather than himself. As the conversation shifted, the prince inquired about Asil's health. He was informed by Adam that her condition had remained stagnant since the day she had fainted in the imperial palace. Although numerous doctors had assured them there was no underlying issue, her recovery was incomplete. Adam added that while she had improved slightly, her overall state had not returned to normal. Frustration was evident as the prince pointed out that both medics and physicians had failed to identify the root cause of her condition. Determined to offer some solace, the prince decided that Asil should be visited, along with Luana, the female protagonist. This gesture, Adam commented with a smile, would certainly bring joy to Asil. However, Adam hesitated before voicing his concern about Luana being taken outside the palace. The previous involvement of Liliana, a woman whose name was marred by an attempted assassination accusation years prior, was mentioned. While Adam's apprehension was acknowledged, the prince reassured him that Liliana posed no real threat. She had become a topic of idle gossip within the palace, and any bold move from her was deemed unlikely. Despite this, the prince admitted to being troubled by the expression Liliana might have shown when her plans had failed, particularly because Luana had been placed under the Empress's protection. To allay concerns, the prince assured Adam that Luana would be provided with additional security, making it unnecessary to worry further. Their discussion was interrupted when a maid entered the room and announced that the queen had requested the prince's presence. When the prince arrived at his mother's quarters, he was informed about a proposal made by Duke Esteban. The Empress, with her characteristic poise, mentioned that the Duke had suggested an arrangement involving Luana, given that his son was close in age to her. While listening to this, the prince became visibly displeased. His suspicions grew as he contemplated the Duke's true intentions. It was believed by the prince that Esteban cared less about Luana and more about using his son to gain favor for his family. As the Empress sipped her tea, a playful remark was directed at her son, suggesting that jealousy might be clouding his judgment. Turning to her attendant Emma, she asked if such tendencies had been noticed in him since childhood. Emma, with a knowing smile, agreed. The prince, unbothered by their teasing, stated firmly that others were free to interpret his actions as they wished. The Empress, however, cautioned her son that Luana could not be kept in his palace indefinitely. It was proposed by her that Luana could be moved to Gloria Palace, a magnificent estate constructed from pristine white marble. This palace, situated between the Empress's quarters and the prince's residence, was a place of honor, often regarded as a symbol of the Empress's affection. The prince, skeptical of his mother's intentions, asked for clarification. The Empress assured him that her motives were purely protective and that Lawana would find happiness in such a space. Despite her reassurances, the prince remained guarded and decided to deliberate further on the matter. Meanwhile, Lawana experienced a peculiar dream. She found herself surrounded by darkness and became aware of a sweet taste lingering in her mouth. It was wondered by her whether this could be the dessert she had been craving. Suddenly, a figure appeared before her and asked whether she was satisfied. Startled, she tried to identify the presence, but it vanished before she could respond. Awakened abruptly, she found Maria, her loyal friend, standing beside her bed. Maria, noticing her distressed state, remarked that it must have been a nightmare. Seeking comfort, Lawana embraced Maria tightly. Elsewhere, in the residence of Duke Esteban, an intriguing exchange occurred between the Duke and his wife. A letter sent by Crown Prince was handed to the Duchess. It was revealed by the Duke that their son, Karan, had been forging a connection with Lawana. The Duchess, astonished by this information, questioned the appropriateness of sharing such royal matters so openly. Her concerns were dismissed by the Duke, who was evidently delighted by the prospect of his family's increased influence. The Duchess remarked that Lawana's visit to the Queen's palace signified the Empress's growing role as her protector. Together, the couple discussed how this development could be used to their advantage. Meanwhile, outside the Duke's residence, Karan was seated quietly when a sudden sneeze escaped him. He muttered to himself, speculating that he might have been mentioned in someone's conversation. A strange unease settled over him, leaving him to ponder the significance of this unexpected feeling. Lawana had finished reading all the books Maria had brought her. Turning to Maria, she inquired if there were more books available. Maria had gently informed her that for now, these were all she had brought, but she promised to bring more next time. To lift Lawana's spirits, Maria suggested they visit the garden, adding that the pleasant weather would make it an enjoyable experience. Hearing about the garden sparked Lawana's curiosity, and as they stepped outside, her eyes lit up with wonder. She expressed her delight, calling the garden beautiful. Maria, observing Lawana's awe, asked if she truly liked it. Lawana admitted that it was her first time seeing a garden, explaining how her mother, Liliana, had always kept her locked in her room. Though Lawana was overjoyed, Maria couldn't help but feel troubled. It's just a flower garden, Maria thought. Why would Liliana deprive her daughter of this simple pleasure? Overcome with emotion, Maria embraced Lawana and softly murmured that Liliana, despite giving birth to her, had not acted as a parent. Noticing Maria's tears, Lawana grew concerned. She assured Maria that everything would be fine and gently urged her not to cry. Maria, wiping her tears, revealed that her own mother had passed away shortly after her birth. Despite this, her father had worked tirelessly to fill the void left by her mother. She explained that he had been a knight in the royal family and had died on a mission, but she remained proud of him until the very end. As they spoke, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden. Lawana's mind wandered back to her mother, Liliana. Why doesn't she ever express what she truly means? She thought. At the same time, she couldn't bring herself to ask Maria the questions swirling in her mind. She felt that the love Maria and others had shown her was enough. Meanwhile, at a distance, the prince and Adam watched the two women in silence, having overheard parts of their conversation. The prince reflected aloud, noting how the sacrifices of people like Maria's father and Adam's father had shaped their lives. Adam assured him, as he always did, that neither he nor Maria harbored resentment toward the prince. The prince, however, found himself burdened by lingering guilt and anger toward Liliana. Deciding it was not the right moment to interrupt, he told Adam they would approach them later. Back in the garden, Maria and Lawana continued to enjoy their time together. Maria asked if Lawana liked the flowers, to which Lawana enthusiastically replied that they were beautiful and sparkling. They began crafting small gifts for each other from the flowers. Maria fashioned a delicate wreath for Lawana, while Lawana, after a few attempts, managed to create a small ring from the flowers for Maria. When they exchanged their creations, Maria accepted Lawana's gift with heartfelt gratitude, promising to cherish it forever. Later, Lawana sat inside the palace, still wearing the wreath Maria had made. The prince and Adam approached her, curious about the wreath. Luana explained that Maria had made it for her, and Maria added that Luana had gifted her a flower ring in return. Adam, smiling brightly, asked if Luana could make something for him next time. Luana cheerfully replied that she would craft matching rings for him and Maria, an idea that left both Maria and Adam momentarily stunned. However, Luana soon noticed the prince's expression had darkened. Worried, she asked if he was upset because she had picked the flowers, promising to be more careful in the future. The prince shook his head, assuring her that he wasn't angry about something so trivial. Instead, he revealed that there was something he needed to discuss. Something about her old palace. Luana froze. Panic surged through her as she struggled to process his words. The palace I escaped from? Why would he bring that up now? Is he planning to send me back there? Fear gripped her, and she could only wait in silence, dreading what the prince might say next. What secrets about Luana's past does the prince hold, and why has he chosen this moment to reveal them? Will Luana be forced to confront the life she fled, or does the prince have a different plan in mind? As the weight of the past looms over her, the answers could change everything. What awaits Luana next?